Hello, everyone, and welcome back. These days, we've been receiving a lot of questions regarding the second post higher education work stream, as you guys may know as the TR regional extension. Now, with many information circulating around online and the internet, many people don't know what is correct, what information is correct, and what is not correct. So, in today's video, we have our registered migration agent with us to help answer some of the most frequent asked questions, clear up any miscommunications, and explain what you need to do before you apply this visa. Okay, so with the first question, what is the second post higher education work stream subclass 485 visa?
Thank you. Hi, everybody. So, Jimmy mentions that it is the second post higher education workstream visa, which obviously means that it is following on the first. We don't call it the first, but it's the post higher education workstream visa, which is mainly for graduates. Like if you have done a bachelor's degree and above, you're eligible to get the post higher education visa. But now Jimmy mentions the second, which basically you need to be studied, you need to have studied, worked, lived in a regional area for at least 2 years to be eligible for this visa.
Okay, so now what are the key eligibility requirements for this visa?
So one of them I just mentioned, like you need to have lived in a designated regional area. Apart from that, obviously, everybody is aware that you cannot be more than 36 years old. Means you need to be less than 36 years old, which is a time of application criteria. So age is definitely one of the eligibility requirements. Now, if you're doing a master's by research or like a PhD, then obviously the as long as you're not 50 years old, you're eligible to for this visa. And apart from that, for the second post higher education work stream, you don't need to show your English proficiency, which you obviously show during your first TR visa. And apart from that, it's pretty much the same eligibility requirements that you need to fulfill at the time of your the first TR visa. And obviously, the health and character requirements would still be one of the eligibility requirements, because that is like a part and parcel of each visa.
Okay. Now, when should applicants lodge their second higher post education workstream visa application?
So I think that's an interesting question, because I think the way the wording is there on the department website, at one stage we had different people approaching us saying that consultancy A is telling us not to apply for the second post higher education TR visa until and unless you had like been granted the first TR visa and like had like 2 years on that visa. So it was more like a wording interpretation that different consultancies did, but we obviously look very closely at the department policy, the migration regulations, and it was very clear that the only thing you need to satisfy, in addition to what I mentioned, is that you need to have lived, worked, studied in a regional area for at least 2 years. That was the key eligibility requirement. So as long as you fulfill that, you can apply for the second post higher education workstream immediately after your first year visa is granted, because there's no waiting period, or whatever you may call it, the cooling period. We have applied for many clients, like we have in some cases TR visa was granted today, we applied for the post TR visa to the next day, and we have got the grant also. So I mean, it's clear that there's no waiting period.
Okay, so to prove that they have lived, studied, and worked in a regional area for 2 years, what kind of documents can be used to prove that?
So see, there is no prescriptive sort of evidence requirements in terms of showing that you lived, worked, studied in a regional area. Obviously, in terms of studies, you have your completion letter, you have your qualification, transcripts, etc. from the university, which obviously has to be in the regional area. But apart from that, you must show or demonstrate that you have lived in a regional area, and there are many ways you can show that evidence. It could be a lease agreement. It could be a lease agreement over the past 2 years or 3 years. Maybe you changed 2 or 3 tenancies or lived in the same place for 3 years or 2 years. As long as you have lived for 2 years, that suffices the requirements. And then you could also have utility bills. You could have electricity bills, you could have mobile bills. So that also works. Now, some people obviously don't have a lease agreement. Some people don't have utility bills also, like in their registered address. You could have like a bank statement, and obviously the transactions that will happen across a period of 2 years will show some Perth, not Perth, some regional based addresses. Like if you are in Perth, it could show like, okay, Farmers Market, Perth, Subico, different suburbs. So the case officer looking at your file could will eventually understand that, okay, the 2 year statement definitely shows like a lot of Perth establishments, regional establishments. So they would be like, okay, this guy is living in the regional area, for example, Perth, and then work it out. But like I mentioned before, there's no like a prescriptive thing. You can give as much as you have. If you have lease agreement, if you have utility bills, if you have bank statements, just give it. If you don't, you can also get it done by the bare minimum.
So now, do secondary applicants such as partners and dependent children also need to have lived in a designated regional area to be eligible for the visa?
No, because the regulations is very clear on that. The primary applicant must have studied, worked, and lived in a designated regional area to be eligible. Now, whether the secondary applicant, the de facto, or the partner has lived with him or her or in a separate state or territory, it doesn't really impact the eligibility requirements. So, no.
Okay. Now, do they need to live in the regional area after the visa has been granted?
Yes. So the whole purpose of the second post higher education workstream is to show your commitment to live and work in a designated regional area. So I just mentioned to Jimmy and you all that before the grant of the visa, you don't have to stay. I mean, the secondary applicant doesn't have to prove that they live in the designated regional area. But once the visa is granted, the visa condition, it is mandatory for all applicants, the primary, secondary, to live in the designated regional area. You just can't avoid that, because if you don't do that, say you're living in a non-designated regional area before the grant, and even after grant, you're like, I'll continue to stay in this area, but that's a breach of visa condition, so it might affect you later on.
Okay. So, what migration risks may arise if the department questions an extended period of separation between the primary applicant and the secondary applicants?
So that's a very interesting question, in the sense that given the nature of the relationship that most Bhutanese have, we can obviously see that there's a lot of de facto relationships, and more often than not, the primary applicant is either in a regional area and the dependent is like in some other areas, which could be regional, which may not be regional, but that is not the thing. If they have not lived together, like for example, we're talking about the second, let's call it the TR visa just for easy purpose. So the second TR visa is like something that comes after like 2 years of studies, followed by the TR visa, the first TR visa, and it depends on when you apply for the second TR visa. Some apply fast, some apply slowly. So that time period has passed on, and then if the department sees that the primary applicant and the secondary applicant is living separately. Now, if the secondary applicant is offshore, that's not an issue. That's totally fine. But if they're living separately, there can be issues where the department can ask for further information. And I think we did encounter a few cases, not through our own clients, but we did get approached. Like, I'm a migration agent, I get approached for consultations on various migration related topics. So they did approach me, and I did come across few cases where department has sent a S56 notice for further information, and they had mentioned as to why the primary and the secondary applicant is having that long periods of separation. I mean, they were asking for evidence to justify that relationship is genuine and continuing, and there are no issues with it.
Now, okay. So if such concerns are raised by the department, is withdrawing the secondary applicant's visa before a decision is made a viable strategy to minimize the risk?
So, Jimmy, that's a bit complex in the sense that now that the department knows in the sense the department has asked you for further information, and then what if, excuse me, what eventually might happen is that the primary applicant and the secondary applicant, if they're in a de facto relationship, they don't have much evidence to share to show that the department that the relationship is solid. It could be so that they want to withdraw the application. Now withdrawing the application is an option, but it is not necessarily the best option, because the department case officer is aware of the fact that because he asked for that information to prove that the relationship is genuine, even though they're living separately. Because even if you're in a genuine relationship, you can live separately because of so many reasons. So when the department case officer asks that, and then they are a bit worried because they don't have the evidence to show, and then they withdraw the application. Now, once they withdraw the application, there is no major damage, if that's the correct word, no major damage that happens. But if the case officer follows this up and takes it to another level, if the case officer is like, just because I asked the relationship details, they withdrew the application, that means the relationship is probably not genuine. Let's go and revisit their first TR visa, because even that TR visa is at risk. So, a long story short, if we are granted a visa, we cannot like take it for granted that that visa will stick with us forever, because it does happen where the TR visa, the secondary applicant was granted the TR visa, the first TR visa, because of that relationship. Now, when the department finds that the relationship is non-genuine, they have withdrawn the application, they might again revisit that granted TR visa and create complications. I'm not saying that will happen, but I'm saying that there is a possibility, and this is a big risk in terms, looking at from the migration side of things.
Okay, for the final question, if an applicant moves from one regional area to another during their second TR, is that okay?
Yes, so like we discussed earlier, now the whole essence of this visa, the second tier visa, is to let you stay in a regional area. So the visa condition itself binds you to do that. Now, it doesn't really restrict you from staying in a particular designated regional area, because things change. You got a job opportunity, or maybe you had to move for some other reasons. So you can move from one regional area to another designated region area. But the only thing that you need to do is you need to notify the department, because that is important. Now, people sometimes move, change address, they don't notify. But in this case, you need to notify, because it's not that complications may arise, but it's always good to notify change in circumstances.
Okay, well, thank you for the information. So that is it today for our video. Hope you guys understood more about the second post higher education work stream. And for more videos, there'll be more videos coming out next week. So we'll see you then. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Thank you.
Thank you. See ya.